This is very good for the future of the San Francisco Giants. A national baseball outlet just ranked the top 15 prospects in the organization's farm system, and we are going to break that down here on SF Giants Digest. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I am your host, Michael Monreal. If you've been here before, welcome back to SF Giants Digest. We are excited to have you. Now, before we get into today's video, make sure to go down in the comments and let me know your favorite prospect in the Giants farm system. There's finally a lot of talent, a lot of upside in this organization's farm system for the first time in maybe 15 years. Let me know your favorite prospect in the organization down in the comments below. Now, before we get into today's video, if you haven't yet, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. About 75% of you guys watch the videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. It's completely free, it takes just a second of your time, and really does help us continue to bring the best Giants content and analysis on YouTube. So if you enjoyed today's video and have been enjoying the videos over the past few weeks, make sure to go down below, hit that button. That'd be much appreciated by myself and everyone over at Digest Media. So thank you guys. If you do, go down below and hit that button. Now, getting right into today's video, with how underwhelming the big league club has been this year, being one of the worst teams in all of Major League Baseball, the farm system has been extremely exciting to follow because now we want to turn to the future as quickly as possible. Now, I helped in this process. For those that don't know, I am a writer at justbaseball.com, but we recently ranked the Giants' top 15 prospects as well as some names to watch, and we're going to break down the entire list, every name mentioned here on the channel. So, getting right into it, the first names I want to break down are the names to watch and 11 through 15. I'm not going to dive super deeply into these guys, but Jonah Cox, Luis De La Torre, Carlos Gutierrez, Lorenzo Meola, Jesus Rodriguez, Carlos De La Rosa, and Victor Barracoto in the names to watch. These are kind of like the honorable mentions, the guys that didn't quite make the top 15 but are still worth mentioning in this system. Jonah Cox, Victor Barracoto, Jesus Rodriguez. We've seen all three of those guys at the big league level this season. Luis De La Torre, an extremely young southpaw. Carlos Gutierrez, a guy who was very good with San Jose last year, is taking a bit of a step back in Eugene this year. Lorenzo Meola, still really early in his professional career. And Carlos De La Rosa, another young southpaw who was part of that return for Camilo Doval just about a year ago. Now, getting into the actual top 15 ranks. Number 11 is Parks Harbor. Now, Parks Harbor is a guy who has matched at every single level of the minor leagues. He was also part of that New York Yankees return for Camilo Doval, and it now seems like he's just going to rake at every single level. Now, we'll have to see how much he hits at the big league level when he eventually gets there and what position he plays long term, but right now the bat looks like it is ready to be at the big league level in the next year or so, and it is exciting to see that as part of the return for Camilo Doval, who's been pretty awful for the New York Yankees. 12, Argenis Kayama. He's a pitcher who I really like. He's arguably my favorite prospect in the system, just purely favorite. He hasn't been pitching for very long, just about 2 years into his career he's been pitching, and now he is showing some really good, feel to pitch, some advanced command already, and that is extremely fun to watch for San Jose. The fastball velocity needs to be a little bit more consistent in the 94 to 95 range, but so far he's shown some really encouraging things. Blade Tidwell, a guy you guys know, he's been with the big league club a little bit, has showed some good stuff as either a high leverage reliever, or if he can put it together over the course of longer starts, he could still be a starting option for the club. Trevor Cohen, another guy who it's really early in his professional career. If he puts it together, he could still become a guy who hits for a high average and becomes a real piece with this big league club, but we're still a few years away from potentially seeing that. And then Drew Cavanaugh, another name who we've seen on the big league club this season, who has showed some really fun things with the bat as a catcher over the last year and a half. He's arguably put together the best numbers in the system over the last year and a half, which is fun to see because the Giants haven't had an offensive catcher in a very long time, and him and Jesus Rodriguez have the opportunity to do that. Now, getting right into the top 10. Now, we're going to go 10 through 6, just kind of quickly mentioning them, and then in the top 5 is where we'll really start to break down some of these names. Number 10 is Carson Whisenhunt. Now, he's a guy who has been around for a while in this farm system, and he dropped down to 10 probably a lot because of just pure prospect fatigue, but there has been an uptick in stuff slightly in AAA this season, and he has dominated the PCL, which you don't hear a lot because it is such a hitter-friendly league, so he has shown some really encouraging things, and that uptick in stuff has allowed him to go a little bit deeper into games, which is an encouraging sight to see for Buster Posey and the Giants front office. He's currently on the taxi squad with the big league club, and Tony Vitello said he'll for sure make a start before before the trade deadline or before the All-Star break. I'm not sure which one he said, but that will be fun to watch. Number 9, Dakota Jordan. he is probably the most tooled out player in this farm system. He has everything you could dream of on a baseball field for an outfielder. He plays good defense in center field. That's come a long way. He steals a lot of bags, is very quick, and hits for a ton of power and decent average. The one thing is if the hit tool will come along ever enough to be a big leaguer. That's the biggest question mark, is some of the whiff rates in the zone, some of the swing and miss. And it's actually gotten a little bit better since college, but this year has taken a bit of a step back since last year in San Jose. So it will be interesting to follow that, his strikeout rate, some of his contact rates through the next year or so. But if he can put it together and the hit tool can just become a little bit below average, then this is a surefire big leaguer and one of the best all-around talents in this system. Number 8, Joe Whitman, a southpaw who hasn't necessarily come out of nowhere, but has seen a huge uptick in stuff this season, and that has really helped him be more effective in the minor leagues, not get hit around as much. He started the year in Double-A with Richmond and was dominant. He won May Pitcher of the Month for the Eastern League, got promoted to Triple-A, and has been just as good in a pure run prevention way. But the strikeout stuff has slightly declined since heading into the PCL, which is expected, as I mentioned, an extremely hitter-friendly league. So Joe Whitman has really changed his outlook from, kind of a sixth starter, long relief option, as now looking like a potential 4 or 5 in a rotation if all things can click for him. Now, number 7, a perfect time to talk about the Giants' first-round pick from a year ago, Gavin Keelan. He was the 13th overall pick in last year's draft. Obviously, the draft is this weekend, and he was Buster Posey's first ever first-round pick. Now, he's not in the top 5 just because the top 5 is extremely good for the Giants system, and Keelan doesn't necessarily have the ceiling that a lot of these names have, but the floor is extremely safe. He's going to hit for a high average, not strike out a lot, play decent defense, and then just run into a few home runs a season. So a fun profile with Gavin Keelan, and looks like a safer one who will be a surefire big leaguer in, a year and a half or so's time. Number 6, Jacob Bresnahan. He's a guy who dominated San Jose last year for the organization. Was, like I said, dominant is really the only way you could put it. He won a few pitchers of the months and got awarded for his play. And this year it was a bit of a slower start in Eugene, but is now starting to put things together. Has had a few good starts in a row, and the fastball here is really impressive. It's not necessarily overpowering. It sits, 94, 96, touching 97, 98. But the shape of it is really strong, and he could get away with just throwing that fastball, the majority of the time right now. Now, the off-speed, the changeup will have to come along a little bit over the next few years, but this looks like a guy who could potentially be a number 3 in a rotation, which is going to be extremely valuable for the San Francisco Giants. Now, that is going to do it for numbers 10 through 6. We are going to get into the top 5 of the San Francisco Giants farm system. And number 5, he has made a huge jump over the last year or so, is Kiner Martinez, a 6'1", 210-pound right-handed pitcher that is currently at the San Jose level, the low-A level, and he has shown some really exciting stuff. The fastball, you see a 60 grade on it currently, already at the top of its game. A slider that also has a 60 grade, been very good. The changeup will have to come a little bit for him to be a realistic, top-end starter, but still showing some really encouraging stuff, a future value of 45 plus, and I think if all things can click, if the command can come a little bit, he does have the occasional blow-up start at low A, but if the command can come, a little bit, it's kind of similar to the Dakota Jordan conversation, but a little bit more consistent already, is, the command does need to come along, but when it does, this is a guy who could potentially be a number 2 in a rotation. Now, ace is probably a bit of a stretch for Martinez, but he has showed some really fun signs over the last year or so, and at some points has dominated low A, so I'd assume he potentially gets up to high A at the end of the season, and we'll see what he can do at that level. But some really exciting things for Kiner Martinez, and he is the highest ranked pitcher in the San Francisco Giants farm system, which is extremely fun to see because this system has lacked top flight starting pitching talent in the farm system since Kyle Harrison, really, and we will be following Kiner Martinez extremely closely over the next few months. Now, moving on to number 4, this is where we get into the top 100 prospects for the San Francisco Giants. And the first one is Bo Davidson, the 4th ranked player in this farm system and the number 1 outfielder in this farm system. A 6'2", 215-pound outfielder with a sweet left-handed swing. And Bo Davidson can do a little bit of everything on the field. Now, he might strike out a little bit, but it's not going to mitigate his game or it's not going to hinder his game whatsoever, I should say. He's going to run into his power. He hit 11 home runs in June. He was just named June Player of the Month for Double-A. He has been very good through June, as I mentioned, but it was a slower start to the season in Double-A. Now he's gotten a little bit more comfortable at that level and is absolutely mashing. I would not be surprised to see a potential promotion to AAA maybe in August at some point towards the end of the season. So you can get a cup of coffee there, start 2027 in AAA, and then who knows, we see him at some point in 2027 with the big league club, because this profile is extremely fun. As I mentioned, a lot of power in that left-handed swing. The defense has come along a lot in center field, and he looks like he could, be a comfortable center fielder at the big league level. So a lot of exciting signs from Bo Davidson over the last year or so, maybe the last 2 years, but the bat has come along a long way. And a pretty fun story for an undrafted free agent who went to 2 different junior colleges, took a break in between, took a year off, and this has been a clear scouting win for the San Francisco Giants. Now, getting into the top 3, this is where things get really exciting for the San Francisco Giants. Here we have 17-year-old Luis Hernandez, a shortstop currently at the Arizona complex. And this was the Giants, top international signing over this past year in January. He was the best international prospect in the class, and he is playing like it in San Jose this year to open his career. Now, the ceiling might not be extremely high with Hernandez, but the floor is so darn safe. He does a little bit of everything on the field, and that is absolutely going to, be a welcome addition to the Giants farm system, because in the past it's been, the Marco Lucianos, the Joey Barts, these guys with high ceilings, but the floor is extremely low. That is not the case with Luis Hernandez. If he puts it all together, this is a surefire big leaguer, and as he has showed some really, really encouraging things in the complex this season. Now, so far this year at the complex, as I mentioned, a 298, 375, 553 slash and a 116 WRC plus, 6 home runs. He's been very good, 36 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, only striking out 17.4% of the time as a 17-year-old at the complex. As I mentioned, really encouraging signs from Hernandez early in his career, and he will absolutely be a name we'll be talking about a lot over the next 2 years or so. Number 2, the number 2 prospect in the San Francisco Giants farm system is Jhonny Level. Now, a lot of you are probably expecting to see Luis Hernandez over Jhonny Level, but that is not the case. Jhonny Level has done everything he needs to jump in this farm system. I believe going into the year he was number 4 in this farm system, but now he is the number 2 prospect, and a lot of that is because he dominated single A. He dominated the San Jose Giants to begin the season and was one of the best teenagers in all of Major League Baseball, and he has just continued that since going to Eugene after getting promoted about a month ago. And so far this season, 312, 367, 522 slash line, good for a 122 WRC plus across the 2 levels. Now, he hasn't hit for a ton of power at high A, 2 home runs so far in 140 plate appearances, but that will come as he gets more comfortable at the level. At low A to open the year, he had 10 home runs in just 217 plate appearances, so some really encouraging signs from Jhonny Level. He can do it from both sides of the plate, and he looks comfortable from both sides of the plate, which is exactly what you want to see from, an 18, 19-year-old player in high A who looks like he could be a real future piece for this organization, which they desperately need considering how the big league club has looked so far in 2026. And the moment you've all been waiting for, the number 1 prospect in this organization, Josuar Gonzalez, the shortstop, who is also at the complex, the 18-year-old who can do basically everything on a baseball field. There's really no holes in his game, and that is exactly what you want to see if you're the San Francisco Giants. This is a guy who could realistically be a top 10 prospect in the game over the next year or so, and he has shown some really exciting things at the complex. You look at his numbers so far this year, 373, 488, 552, good for a 157 WRC plus, only striking out 19% of the time, walking almost 18% of the time. This is an 18-year-old kid who is walking as much as he is striking out. He's doing everything on the field. He's also ran into 1 home run. Now, the power is something that will need to come into a little bit more, but everything else looks extremely advanced for this young of a kid, and as I mentioned, a guy who looks to be a top 10 prospect in the game within the next year or so. A really exciting time to be a fan of the San Francisco Giants, and that is going to do it for this farm system. It is a bit top heavy with that top 5 to 7 range, but still a really talented system. As Arm Layton put it, this is one of the quickest rising farm systems in all of Major League Baseball. Really exciting stuff to follow as a Giants fan, especially one looking into the future. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments on this farm system, who your favorite prospect is, and let me know if you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to go down below, hit that subscribe button. That'd be much appreciated by myself and everyone over at Digest Media. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.